You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Thin, Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, Full Script, your online dispensary, Angela Pearson, author of I'm Not Contagious, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
All right, so we're here live with Don Rasmussen, ChiroTaxPro.com. Click the link above if you guys want to understand more about tax prep and tax planning. And Don, this is a sponsorship edition, so thank you for supporting the Chiro Hustle podcast. You can also click above and check out our newest episodes of Chiro Hustle at ChiroHustle.com. And I know that there's some really interesting stuff that we're going to discuss today, because most people, when they make money, they don't know how to save money. When they make money, they don't know how to appropriate that properly. And not to say that people don't know this, but there's probably some stuff that you're going to share with them today that will help them out in understanding the flow rather than the force, and or the complacency and the despondency and the things like, I just don't know how to do it. I'm just going to deal with whatever happens. So first of all, welcome to our show.
Thank you.
And secondly, let's tell people what Chiro Tax Pro is and a little bit of the impetus of why you started this business to help chiropractors.
Sure. So, my history is I've been in this business for 30 plus years. I've owned 3 CPA firms in that time. But I realized about 6-7 years ago that the best value that we could offer our clients is tax planning. And so my story is that I went to see my chiropractor. What really kind of kicked it off is I went to get my adjustment, as I do every month. And he said, Don, listen, I am being killed on taxes. And his name is Jeff. And I said, well, Jeff, let me take a look at your tax returns. And so I brought him back, and our team looked at him, and we came back and found over $150,000 in tax savings. And that's every year since then. And that's been 6 years ago. So, that's a huge amount. And his comment to me, he said, listen, Don, he said, the reality is, there's many, many chiropractors out there that need your help. And they may not be at my level. Maybe they're less, or maybe they're more. But the reality is that they do need your help. And because I believe in chiropractic care so much, I made a determination, a couple of things. In 2017, I sold my last 2 CPA firms. And since 2014, we've been specializing in specifically with chiropractors. And what I found, Jim, is that, we really, number one, we believe in chiropractic care, and we understand chiropractors. And that's the reason why our team specializes specifically. I look at it this way here. I've had a conversation with various ones, Ray Foxworth, Mark Santa, the presidents of different state associations. And the reality is they get a great education when they go to, whether it's Palmer or Life or Parker, whatever school they go to. But the reality is they don't get a lot of education when it comes to tax management, cash management. Matter of fact, I just did a session for Breakthrough Coaching, a 45-minute session. It was about this here. Mark Santa says, listen, what they need is financial planning, not in the sense of, how to budget your home bills and, mortgages, things like that, but really cash flow management and tax management. And so that's the reason why we put an emphasis and focus for chiropractors, because we want to be experts in what we do. So that's kind of a quick synopsis of how we started and why we do what we do.
Yeah, that's super important for people to understand, like, the power behind the company that's supporting them. And I think so many times when people just hire I just hire the CPA down the way just because they're the person in my BNI group. But they really don't know the chiropractic business. Sure. And that's really what I think sets you guys apart from the rest of anyone else that would be offering their services. And you guys are bigger than a CPA. You guys are actually a tax planning and tax prep business. So maybe we can give some distinctions around what those topics are, because I think that so many times they think that just getting their taxes done is enough. But preparation and planning are 2 different things. So maybe you can give some clarity to that.
Well, very much so. And that kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier. When I had the CPA firms, We did compliance, we did bookkeeping, we did payroll, we did tax returns, which there's a lot of great CPAs and accountants out there that can do that. As a matter of fact, one thing I meant to clarify earlier is that Chiro Tax Pro is powered by Quartermaster Tax Management. Now, and the reason why I say that is we are a tax planning firm. We have 5 CPAs on our team. I just mentioned earlier that we're in the process of hiring another one, a couple of accountants. But our goal is not to replace the chiropractor CPA. Now, I will tell you, Jim, we do have some who say, listen, my CPA is retiring, or I don't like him or her, or whatever it may be. We can help. But our goal, we realize there's a lot of CPAs out there that they do a remarkable job at recording history. And that's really the distinction. So there's tax preparation and tax planning. Tax preparation is what all of us have to do. We have to take our information and we have to get it over to our accountant or our CPA. And then they're going to take that information, they're going to put it on the appropriate forms, whether that's a 1120S for an S corporation or a 1065 for a partnership, or if you're a Schedule C into your 1040. But however you do your taxes, the reality is most CPAs, their number one goal is to keep you from running through red lights. That's why we call it compliance, to make sure that you're not breaking any rules when it comes to filing your taxes. Now, the distinction there is tax, and let me say this, that happens, December 31st, once that happens, the year's over with. There's very few things you can do in the rear view mirror. And I'll talk about those a little bit later on, what you can do. But when it comes to tax planning, it's an all year event, meaning that, it's not, April 15th or March 15th or September or October 15th, for extensions. The reality is tax planning is like chiropractic care. It's pain management. It's just a different type of pain, but we're managing that liability, Jim, all throughout the year, because the reality is, everyone's situation changes. This year here, we've had COVID. I mean, I shared this last week in that class I did, but the first quarter of this year, our chiropractors around the country, for the most part, there's a few exceptions, were really doing well. Matter of fact, we had some of them that really looked a lot like the SpaceX spaceship. It was taken off like a rocket. But then, of course, March happened or April, and all of a sudden they hit a brick wall. Well, that changes your income situation, but also changes your tax situation. Now, we have a lot of DCs out there that have recovered and are doing just fine, or doing much better than they were last year. So everyone's at a different level of recovery, but regardless of where you're at in that process, you need to make sure that you're managing, because you said it earlier, and I say this all the time, it's not how much you make, it is how much you keep. And that's where tax planning is an all year event. I had a client, I'll make it real brief here, had a CPA refer a client over to us who was a chiropractor. He knew we specialized. And he referred him over to me on December 16th. Well, as you can imagine, Jim, December 16th is not the best, most appropriate time to refer a client. And there was maybe one or two things we could do for him, but not a whole lot considering the holidays and such. Matter of fact, one of those strategies, he had to sign the documents by December 31st, or he was going to forfeit about $100,000 in tax savings. So again, it's got to be an all year event. And right now, we're coming to the end of September. Between September 1st and generally about December the 1st is where the sweet spot is for tax plan, where we do the bulk of this process. So that's why, when it comes to our quarterly reviews that will happen here in October, we're reviewing with every one of our clients. We're looking at their P&Ls and their balance sheets. We're looking at their cash flow, their profitability, and we're making sure that when it comes to, I refer to a landing the plane, we want to land that plane as smoothly as possible when it comes to taxes, reducing it as much as legally possible. And that's the one thing too I failed to mention. When it comes to tax planning, I said, tax preparation is about not running red lights, Jim. Tax planning is making sure that you're taking advantage of the green lights. So inside the tax code, there's about 85 different tax strategies that we can use for our clients. Not all of them are appropriate, but I can tell you that every one of them is based upon the code. So when we recommend a tax plan to somebody, everything we recommend is going to be based upon the tax IRS code, a treasury decision, a private letter ruling, and various other things that we can go into more detail later. But the point is, we know without a shadow of a doubt that it's something that's not going to throw up a red flag with the IRS, because nobody wants that. We don't want that. We don't want our clients to have that. So
I think the information that you just shared is so valuable. People out there, they probably right now more than ever have some financial anxiety, and they have some stressors that they're, even if it's in a typical year, they kind of can suppress them because things, when things are going well, you suppress things that you don't want to pay attention to. But I think now there's some things that people might want some help with. And I think that that's kind of where our conversation is leading to, is what are some typical outcomes that you might be able to present to our audience, or what are some, what can a chiropractor expect when they work with you? And I know that just because of the financial realm, that when you think about like a 12-month strategy, that right now we're towards the tail end of those 12 months. We have 3 more months left starting October 1. And when we come into quarter 4, I know that that's kind of late in the game, but when you talk about planning versus preparation, I think the preparation is when you actually are working with a client, and the planning is when you can say, here's all the green lights, let's not run red lights, and let's not stress ourselves out and put ourselves under any unnecessary pressures. And I think that that's really where people are when they don't pay attention to it. When you don't pay attention to your numbers, you can't improve them.
right.
And I think that that's something that a small business definitely has to be aware of. And if they're not thinking about whatever, the vernacular you guys use is profit and losses, whenever people look at their P&L sheet on a month to month, if they're not paying attention to that, they can't make improvements on it. And if they think that everything that they make is theirs, they're wrong.
Right. That's very, very, very true. I like to use the illustration when I talk to my clients is, just like as a DC, when you have a new patient come in, you're going to take x-rays. Well, if you don't have a healthy spine to compare it against, you really don't know if they do have a subluxation or whatever a pinched nerve or whatever it is. And that's the reason why we do the same thing. We offer a free tax x-ray because, listen, I don't expect the chiropractors out there. Matter of fact, again, working with them all over the country, whether it's in California or New Jersey or North Carolina, is for them to understand and to know when things are out of proper adjustment. And that's really what we come in and do, Jim, is we're looking at it with a set of eyes and a team that looks at it and says, okay, where is money falling through the cracks? Because that's really what's happening. I didn't write the IRS code, but I can tell you that it's there for those who want to use it. There's an old saying that says, knowledge is power. Well, the reality is application of that knowledge is what gives you the power. And so that's really when someone engages Quartermaster in Chiro Tax Pro, that's what we do, is we're taking the knowledge that's there inside those 85 tax planning strategies, and we apply it to that chiropractor. And every one of our chiropractors have some similarities, but every one of them is like a snowflake, meaning that their situations are different. I have chiropractors who are able to live off of $75,000 a year. Others need $500,000 a year to live off of. So that gives us, and then of course, their income levels, all those are factors. Do they have kids in college? How to make that deductible? All those are the issues that we look at when we're looking at someone's situation. And you hit it on the head. Right now is that sweet spot. This is where we do most of our tax planning is here in September and October and into, again, till the end of November. This is really where we bring the greatest value for our clients. What we've done up to this point this year is really just kind of to monitor their trends, making sure, are they scaling up? Are they scaling down? How did COVID impact them? And I will tell you one other thing too, that the CARES Act actually created some tax planning strategies that we won't have next year. We hope we don't have to deal with this ever again. But also the Families First Corona Act as well was another opportunity for some tax planning. Keep in mind too, that if you receive PPP money this year, that's another issue. That's not taxable income, but as the IRS is treating it right now, and that is you can't deduct those expenses that you're using that money for. So that creates some potential challenges as well for some of the clients out there. So that's the reason why it's important to make sure. And you said it earlier too, I've talked to chiropractors who are in their 50s in my age group who have never looked at a P&L.
You've made it to Chiro Hustle Live. Sit back and learn from the greatest influencers in the profession. This week's episode is brought to you by Imaging Services, Chiro Chiro Moguls, Mahalo Wellness, Local Gold, Chiro Health USA, The Goodman Factor, Chiropractic Rocks, Winner's Edge, Accident Records, Chiro Tax Pro, Full Script, your online dispensary, Angela Pearson, author of I'm Not Contagious, and Digital Hustle. Let's hustle.
Well, P&L, in our perspective, is like taking your pulse. How do you know if your business is healthy or not? There's no way. You have to look at your numbers. And matter of fact, I'll tell you, Amy up at ANJC told me, she said this whole coronavirus situation really brought to the forefront how ill-prepared, I guess is a good term, that chiropractors were for this whole crisis. Now, I can't say that all chiropractors struggled through it. I'm going to tell you there's a lot of them, quite frankly, but there's some that had properly prepared. But that all being said, I don't mean to ramble on there, but I just wanted to say that this is a great time to do tax planning. I will tell you the best place to go to is chirotaxpro.com, like Jim said earlier. And there's 3 things you can do there. And I want you to go ahead and click on there. Number 1 is you can see a few of our doctors. So we try to rotate this out once a year, but you can kind of see we have 2 DCs there that were able to save 6 figures. We have per year. We have another DC on there who saved some around $60,000+, and another one $15,000. So you can see the whole range of situations, and all of them are different age groups, different income levels, all that. You go down a little bit further, and you can actually go to our tax calculator. So this is, I think, one of the more valuable tools. And so what happens is there's a thing called adjusted gross income. All that means in a nutshell is when you add up all your income, what do you pay taxes on? You can see that right on your tax return. So you pop in your adjusted gross income. It's going to calculate, number 1, a range of what the least amount of tax savings would be up to the most. And then, of course, what our average is. Now, what you're going to see, Jim, if you were to go there, anybody else watching this today, they're going to see a range. And the range is, extreme. I will say this, but this has all been audited by a third-party auditor. This is the results we've done with chiropractors. That's number 1. Number 2, we have single taxpayers, and we have married filing jointly. We have DCs who live in California with one of the highest tax rates in the country, and we have them in Texas who has no state income tax. So the point is that's the reason why you see a range, but you're going to see that average. And like I said, it's very consistent. Every time we walk through with a new client, we'll show them. So you can see here, you fell right here within this range, and this is how far you are off from our average. So it just kind of gives them an idea. The third thing you can do there is I wrote a book. We have done 2 revisions because of the tax code changes that President Trump did back here a couple of years ago. We're waiting for the 3rd revision. And I'll tell you the reason why is because of the election that's only about a month and a half away. Whoever gets elected, there's going to be some tax law changes. Trump's already said he's going to make some changes to help cut taxes. And then, of course, Mr. Biden has also suggested some tax law changes as well. So I want to make sure that everyone gets a copy of this. It's called the Top 10 Tax Subluxations Chiropractors Have and How to Adjust Them. If you go down to the bottom of the page, you can request your own digital copy of this here. And this has all the 2018 tax law changes so you can look at it. Now, I will tell you, these are the 10 most simplest tax planning strategies. We're not getting into the complexity because, again, this just kind of gives you an idea of some of the things you can do. You can put kids on payroll. You can do the Augusta rule, which is using your home for meetings up to 14 times a year. So it gets in really basic stuff. The more income you make, the more sophisticated the tax planning strategies get. So that's the reason why we didn't want to get too deep in here. This is things that, most accountants know about. Maybe they may not recommend it. Matter of fact, I can tell you most of the DCs that we work with have never had a proactive tax planning conversation with their CPA. We just had 2 new clients come on last week. And I can tell you, both of them said they were frustrated by a couple of things, Jim. Number one is they didn't know what their tax liability was until April 15th, and they had to stroke a big check. That's number one. Number two is that their CPA meets with them maybe once a year, and it's more about, what happened in the year prior, but not so much on how to reduce the taxes going forward. So that's the biggest frustrations I hear back from DCs. And so that's why tax planning is the best thing you can do for your practice. Now, you have to pay taxes for it for it to be beneficial. We always tell folks, if you're paying more than $30,000 a year in federal income taxes, then it really does make sense to have a conversation with one of my team members, myself or one of our team members, about reducing that tax liability. Now, not to say that if you have less tax liability, it doesn't make sense to do tax planning. It may very well, but we generally find that those are at 30,000 and above, it's the most painful. But if you're only paying $5,000 a year in taxes, there's not really much we could do because there's got to be some delta there to be able to work with. And so I just want to share that as well, that where the sweet spot really comes. But you go to our website, like I said, chirotaxpro.com, plug in your numbers. It'll tell you. Our goal is on a minimum, is to save someone at least $15,000 in taxes. And so that's what I'm saying. And generally that can range anywhere from 25% to 50% is our tax savings for every one of our clients. So anyway, that's kind of what I would recommend everyone to do here today.
Well, chiropractors in general, they're all about service. And I know that's what you guys are about with chirotaxpro.com is all about service.
Correct.
And instead of taking somebody from critical state that has limitations of matter and saying, hey, we're going to fix you with one adjustment, you want to put somebody on a protocol of maintenance. And I think that's a good analogy when it comes to taking somebody that's in the space of chiropractic and saying, hey, wrap your head around this one. Instead of you meeting with me once a year for that one miracle adjustment, how about we work out a strategy for you to have a maintenance plan to where we don't have to worry about damage control. And you don't have a flare up to where now you have like the white flag and you're waving it to me and you're like, Don, come save me. And then it's, all hands on deck with your team, which is probably going to cost them a lot more money and a lot more time and a lot more stress. And that's something no one really ever wants to manage or deal with. And I'm sure that chiropractors are listening to this. You don't want that case coming into your office and, they're here until they get help and then they're gone. So I think it's a lot about relationship. And I think that if we really talk about more about the money aspect of life is relationships over revenue. But why not save what you make? And why not do it effectively? And why not, know that the people that you're actually providing services to as the chiropractor are actually paying for the services that you're rendering and making sure that you're collecting as much as you can on those services provided. So I think, the conversation is very linear, but also we don't want people to get into a situation where they think that what they're doing is right until they get that snapshot from you and have you actually do the investigation and the onboarding process and see if they are a good fit. Because the worst thing that we ever want somebody to do is not be successful in their business. I know that people are all over the place looking for solutions and remedies and, fixes, and they just don't know where to go or who to trust. And that's one of the things where we've aligned ourselves with you and your business was I knew from the jump you helped us. You looked at what we were doing, how we could, utilize some of these funding resources that were available and how we could actually, move our systems and businesses forward. And you didn't have to do that stuff, but you said, you know what? I'm going to have a look and see what this Chiro Hustle team is doing, what their numbers are saying, and how we can hopefully make some improvements for them. So it's not just like me, taking a random company off the street and saying, hey, I want this company to represent our business. No, we saw that what you were doing was very helpful to our community by helping us first. And I think that says a big deal to people out there that will be watching this and that are paying attention to what you're doing and what we're doing. I think the biggest problem, Don, is most people, they fly blind and they get their statements from the IRS, and all of a sudden they get those over to their accountant or CPA and they think all is fine. But really, what they do with you and your business isn't so much an expense, it's an investment and it's probably a savings. So I think that would be how I would urge people to click on chirotaxpro.com, have a chat with Don and his team and see if they might be able to help you with some resources that they have access to. And like you said, not everybody's scenario is the same. Everybody is a bit of a snowflake in this world when it comes to the business that they run. So you take each one of those cases very uniquely and you put them through the system that you guys do, and you figure out how to best help people. And I think that that's appropriate because that's like what a chiropractor does. They come in, what are you presenting? What are your symptoms? How can I help you? How long will it take? How much will it cost? And I think that if you present something to a chiropractor, they're going to say, okay, what is my tax symptoms? Well,
Yep, exactly.
what do you present to me? Okay, well, how long will it take? How much will it cost? Bingo. Now we have a deal.
Well, you said it earlier, and that is really tax preparation, Jim, is really a cost. It's a cost of doing business. Everyone has to do it. And whether you pay $1,000 or $5,000 for your tax preparation, that's really a cost of doing business. But tax planning is an investment into your business. And matter of fact, because it is, you should, without a doubt in your mind, that you're going to get a good return on your investment. We actually guarantee a return on the investment. We guarantee to double their money within 12 months, or we give it all back. That's how much we believe in what we do and how important it is for these DCs to have something in place. And then, a couple of things, and I'll let you finish up here. But the one thing is, it's not, as I said in the beginning, there's not much you can do after December 31st. But the reality is, we actually have a whole division for tax credits. So research and development tax credits are for DCs. I mean, we have the top tax attorneys and CPAs in the country who actually do our interview for our DCs, and we have found anywhere from $15,000 to $150,000 in research and development tax credits, because every time you meet with one of your new patients, you're doing a new care plan. Well, that qualifies as a research and development.
Wow.
And like I said, we get everything strictly documented for us to be able to submit. But I mean, like I said, 15,000. We just had one, and then also states. We just did one in Minnesota, which we were just totally blown away. The amount of tax credits. Wisconsin, Georgia, California. There's a bunch of states out there that give tax credits to. That I will tell you again, owning CPA firms, most CPAs, number one, don't know anything about research and development credits. And number two, I can tell you, you can look at your tax return real quickly and see if you received any. You'll know if your CPA does know about them. Now, again, there's some criteria. You need to have a W-2 of about $100,000 for it to make sense to go through this process. But I will tell you, we're going to have one of our team members, actually the director of our tax credit division, Nick Abear, is going to be on 2 weeks from now, I think the first Monday of October. And then, of course, then we're going to have the second thing we also do besides that is CFO services. One thing we had a big request for is someone who would come along as a CFO, Chief Financial Officer, for our chiropractors. But if you go out and hire one, it's going to cost you $100,000 or $200,000 to do so. So we actually have that, what we call fractional CFO, that they can utilize our services. And so we come alongside on a monthly basis and make sure all the T's are crossed and I's are dotted. Again, that's one of the solutions or options. But I will tell you, next Monday, Jim, when we come back, I really want everyone who's on here to come back, because I'm going to talk about the top 3, maybe even as many as 5 tax planning strategies that you can actually implement before the end of the year and save some tax dollars. And so there's no charge for this here, but I'll cover those, as some of those are covered in my book. And but anyways, I just want everyone to know to tune in next Monday for the top 3 to 5 tax planning strategies. And then, of course, the following Monday is going to be Nick Abear, who's going to cover our tax credits, research and development tax credits. You definitely want to tune into that. And then the following Wednesday, which I believe is the 7th, is going to be Ryan Cook. Ryan heads up our CFO services. His father's actually a chiropractor, so he knows, and his brother, he knows the need and the value of having the CFO services, what we call profit first. So making sure you're intentionally profitable, because again, like I said at the beginning, it's not how much you make, it is how much you keep. And so that's why I wanted to kind of give everyone an overview of the things. We felt like this was a good time of the year, because this is the time of the year, not December, to start planning to reduce your taxes for this year. If you don't do it in the next roughly 60 days, it's going to be very difficult to do a Hail Mary in December. So I just kind of close that up.
Yeah, and I thank you so much, Don, for offering so much value to our listeners today and supporting what we do at Chiro Hustle. We do keep free speech alive and well in this beautiful profession of chiropractic, and we are relentless with our message. We show up every day, and I just really appreciate you being able to help our audience with the services that you provide. And to me, it's a relationship over revenue, but revenue is important when you're talking about your profession. So I think that when people do support what you are doing for the chiropractic profession with your services, then the revenue stays within that person's life, and then relationships improve. I think that when we look at things in a circular or a linear fashion, that when we pie chart it out or however we want to delineate information, that when people have more money, they have a better quality of life typically. And if they save money, there's less stress. So working with Chiro Tax Pro, the link's in the description above, chirotaxpro.com. And I'm looking forward to talking with Nick and Ryan over the next 2 weeks. And you guys are doing a great service to the chiropractic profession. And I know it's a very confusing place when people are like, well, what do I do? How do I do it? What's the strategy? You guys have all that figured out for them. So working with professionals is what we want to achieve with this type of promotion. So I really trust what you guys are doing, and I just thank you for being my guest today on the sponsorship edition.
Thank you very much, Jim. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll talk to you soon. Thank you, and see you on the next one.
All right, buddy. Take care.
All right, thank you.
Thank you for listening to Chiro Hustle Live. Don't forget to subscribe and check back next week to continue hustling.